I was working on a film documentary in Galveston, Texas, when I came across this historical building called Ashton Villas and this very powerful statue depicting Black history called the Blank Slate Statue. The Juneteenth celebration started right here at the Ashton Villas. Black Senator Al Edwards helped to make Juneteenth a major state holiday in 1979. The first celebration of Juneteenth was on the lawn of Ashton Villa at 2328 Broadway. The Juneteenth event commemorates the reading of General Order No. 3 by Major General Gordon Granger of the 13th Army Corps on June 19, 1865.
The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free.
Major General Gordon Granger read General Order No. 3 from the balcony of the Ashton Villa. General Order No. 3 was read 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation issued by President Lincoln on January 1, 1863, which announced that slavery had ended in the United States. Many plantation owners knew about the President's proclamation given in 1863, but refused to tell the slaves that they were free for almost another 2 years until June 19, 1865.
And old master didn't tell you it was free.
He didn't tell you that?
No, he didn't tell you. I think now they said they wait them 6 months after that. 6 months. And turn them loose on the 19th of June. That's why you celebrate that day. Colored folks. Celebrate that day.
In the back of Ashton Villas is one of the most powerful statues depicting Black history that I have ever seen. Very few have seen this statue in person. It is called the Blank Slate Statue, which tells the history of the Negro from slavery to freedom in just one look. The Blank Slate Statue is a powerful collection of Black figures telling the story of African American history. This statue has no base or pedals to it. The reason for this is that the artist, Kwame Akuto Banfu, considered a base under the statue would represent white privilege. The Blank Slate Statue is a stack of bodies flushed against the ground, a ground in which millions of African slaves toiled and died upon. The bottom of the statue shows an African slave shackled and chained. That slave and many like him were fortunate enough to survive the grueling trip from Africa to America. From 1525 to 1866, 12.5 million Africans were taken from their homeland. They were transported across the Atlantic Ocean, where 2 million of them would not survive. Before boarding, they were stripped of their clothes and heads were shaven. Slaves lived above deck and below. Once they were below deck, they were stuffed into compartments with ceilings that were as low as 4.5 feet. In the early 1800s, nets were built around the boats so that those who wanted to die instead of going into forced servitude would not be able to commit suicide. On the boat, slaves would be separated by gender, male and female. The men were shackled and the women were not. Both women and men were forced to relieve themselves wherever they laid or sat. Combined with the heat and lack of ventilation, they lived in a God-forsaken environment. Disease was rampant: dysentery, malaria, yellow fever, smallpox, measles, influenza. The women menstruated wherever they laid or sat with no hope of medical supplies to control their periods. The women were sexually abused and raped constantly by the ship's crew. Many of the women arrived into the New World bearing the children of their attackers. Because of their minuscule freedom, it was the women who would normally ignite mutinies or rebellion against their captives. These rebellions were rarely successful. Slaves would be stripped naked and punished or beaten to death in front of the crew and other slaves in order to set an example for those who would be disobedient. Some were viciously stabbed and thrown overboard for their defiance. Looking at the Black Slate Statue, you will see a Union soldier standing on the hands of his enslaved ancestor, whose body is on the ground in which he would toil on for hundreds of years. The enslaved ancestor holds up the soldier by his hands with great determination. The black soldier is also holding a black woman up. Many black men were given the opportunity as part of their freedom to serve in the U.S. Army. This took the black man away from the harsh physical realities of slavery. Yet slavery was burned into the core of his life, all because of his origin, race, and the color of his skin. The black soldier has a hangman's rope around his neck, which showed the most heinous crime that was taken out on black men, women, and children. The black soldier is holding a tattered American flag, a flag that was to represent liberty for all, but it did not include our African ancestors and those that came after them. The tattered flag represented the torment in which Africans and Negroes suffered at the hands of white women and white men. Slave owners abused and violently punished the slaves in some of the most horrific atrocities of our black history. They hung and physically mutilated slaves, cutting off their ears, fingers, hands, feet, and genitals, forcing them to eat the feces of other slaves. The black soldier never for a moment considered dropping the mother and child to the ground because he knew that the mother and baby represented the future generations of African Americans. In her hand, she holds the light of freedom for all.